Hi everyone! I'm back with another episode of my Student Life Tips series in collaboration with EVOLVERE Mental Health. This month, our video is going to focus on interview tips, whether that's for residency, medical school, job interviews, scholarship interviews, pretty much anything that you might be interviewing for. Hopefully some of these tips can be helpful. My first tip, and probably the most important one, is to know your application. Whether this is whatever you actually wrote in the application itself, or everything that you included in your resume or CV that you might have attached when you were applying. Reread your application, reread your resume, your CV, your cover letter, and have those things familiar to you so that you can talk about them easily during the interview. You will be asked about random things on your application or resume during your interview, and especially when it comes to medical school or residency applications, you may be asked about hobbies or random other interests that you listed on your application, so make sure you remember what you wrote. Tip number 2, make sure that everything you listed on your application is something that you can actually talk about for 60 to 90 seconds or so. That's my general rule. I recommend practicing with a friend. If someone asks you about something on your application, try talking about it and see how long it takes you to talk about that thing. Some people are more talkative than others. If you know that you're a particularly talkative person, then challenge yourself to limit your answers to 1 minute long each. If you're not that talkative or you're a shyer person, challenge yourself to make your answers at least 30 seconds long for each of the things that you list on your resume. It'll pretty much even out. Tip number 3, remember that your interview is a two-way street. It's not only that the program or the job is interviewing you, but you are also evaluating them to see if you're a good fit for them and they're a good fit for you. Make sure that you always have some questions that you ask, especially in the case of medical schools or residencies. If you're interviewing at multiple places, try to have a couple of questions that you ask every single program or position. That way you have something to compare between. Those are kind of my top 3 tips for all interviews, but I do want to mention a couple of additional things that are more specific to residency and maybe to some degree to medical school as well. Tip number 4, one of my residency specific tips, is to ask residents about all the little things that are important to you. This can be as big or as small as you want. For me, food, groceries, cooking are all very important. And the fact that there are 3 Costco's, 3 Trader Joe's, 3 99 Ranches, maybe 4, that are all within about a 15-minute drive of me, that was very important to me when I was looking at the area around my residency program, because I wanted to make sure that the things that I usually get to cook and eat with are accessible to me. Don't hesitate to ask about some of those small things, because those can be huge quality of life improvements for you in your new position. My last more residency specific tip, during your interview process, make sure that you're not just evaluating the position itself, but the surrounding area. For example, if you have kids, make sure to ask about resources for childcare, schools in the area, things like that. If you have a partner, you can ask about local job opportunities or about how involved partners tend to be in residency events. If you have a specific interest, like for running, you can ask about local trails, races, and hikes. If you really like coffee, you can ask about residents' favorite local coffee shops. Pay attention to that stuff too, because remember that whatever the position is that you're applying for, it's not going to completely define your life, or at least it shouldn't. And so you should have some things that you're doing outside of that position and make sure that the area around the program or the job where you're applying is able to support you in your life outside of work. Hopefully some of these tips were helpful. Best of luck to those of you who will be going through the interview process for residency very soon, as well as to those of you who are interviewing for any other position. Especially when it comes to residency applications, this time can be really nerve-wracking, but remember that right now you are basically in the process of designing your future career and figuring out your priorities. It involves a lot of introspection, but it is a really rewarding process. And so I encourage you to take some time to reflect on how far you've come and what's in store for you in the very near future. Good luck, and thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.